and share with you. So let's quickly. My name is Gabriel Nyman. I run security at an American company called StrataCache as my day job. As my evening job, I have a startup called Kilpi, which does, among other things, honeypots, and that's what I'm going to talk about today, honeypots. And I like to compare them to fire alarms because of their simplicity, and they are very good at alerting when you actually need it. And but I feel that not a lot of people have honeypots in their networks yet. Maybe you do, maybe if you do, then great. But if you don't, hopefully after this talk, you might want to go put a honeypot in your network. And let's get into why. So what is a honeypot? Honeypots have been around for a long time. They vary from very, very simple ones, which just show a banner to the internet and check who is trying to scan some specific service, all the way to really complex ones that are internal networks next to some industrial controller where they emulate the whole controller and see that if there's somebody on the network trying to do something funky with that industrial controller, they track what are they trying to do and everything with that. But in this talk, what I want to focus on is the medium-like level, somewhere in between. I call them, usually honeypots are divided into low interaction, which is the ones you can't really interact with. They just respond. They pretend, hey, I'm a Windows server, but when you ask it more, it doesn't answer anything. And then there's the high interactions where you can log into the system, you can run commands, everything looks like normal, but they are quite complex to set up and run, take a lot of resources. And in the middle, there's this, that they might present a login screen that, hey, oh, this looks like a real one, but they won't actually let you log in, which is from a honeypot, making a honeypot perspective, much easier to make than like high interactions on, but they still provide a lot of value because they allow you to log in, or they allow the attackers that you don't want to log in to log in. Yeah. So, why are honeypots so great? They use like the defender's advantage, one of the few advantages you have as a defender. Often you say that the defender needs to get everything right, but the attacker just needs to get one thing right. But I think that's not always true, especially with the defender's advantage where you know your network. You can use that information against the attacker. The attacker, when he gets into your network, he doesn't know what you have there. And if you can then get him to believe that not everything is true in that network, maybe there's like this server that he finds that, oh wow, this is a legacy Windows 2008 server, that's a great target. If he starts doubting himself, then he can't just go and attack it. He has to spend a lot more resources trying to figure out. And that's how honeypots use the defender's advantage. And here also, when an attacker gets into your network and starts looking around, they usually figure out, okay, here's a NAS, here's something else. And a low interaction honeypots sits here and waits for the attacker to see, okay, on this network there's a NAS, on this office network there's a network file share, which is very common. And people love putting them in office networks where IT doesn't know about them, but they need to store their files somewhere, so they put in a NAS. And an attacker really, this is like a gold mine for them. They're, oh, perfect, there's like an old NAS. IT doesn't support this, they might not even know it exists. Let's log in and see. And if this isn't a real file share, it's just a honeypot, you get a very high fidelity alert. You get an alert you know you need to react to, because the normal people who work in the office, they don't log into this, they know where to find their files. But the attacker who is looking around, oh wow, I found this, let's go for this one. And another very benefit with them is that they have very low maintenance. There's lots of great security products out there. They generate lots of alerts. You have to log into the dashboard. You have to look at the graphs. Oh, there's so much attacks going on that you have to decide, is this something to care about or not? The honeypot just sits there. You install it once, then you don't have to think about it. But when it actually sends the signal, then you again know, okay, this is probably something I need to look deeper into. And they fit very well in this modern assume breach concept where, I mean, you can't defend your network with a honeypot. But you have your firewalls, you have everything, and then if the attackers manage to get in, it's a very efficient additional defense. But it might catch the attacker who is then looking around, and it doesn't require a lot of resources from you. And that's how I like to compare them with the fire alarm. I mean, fire alarms you put up, you put the battery in, and then you forget about them until they start beeping. And these honeypots are the same, like medium interaction honeypots. And also, this is an impression. I'm not a red teamer, so if there's some red teamer here who thinks I'm wrong on this, I'd love to. You can raise your.
Can I get a show of hands from red teamers?
Well, if you have done any red teaming at any point, yeah, there's much more, exactly. I mean, I don't think you have ever encountered a honeypot. If you have, I'd love to hear about it, because I get the impression they are not as much used. That's why I want to tell about them. And there was this very interesting research, a PhD done, empirical assessment of effectiveness of deception in cyber defense, where they had simulated red teams. They had one group which they told, on this network you should do this and this and this, and there is honeypots, there's deception technology in this network. And then they had another group, they said, please do this and this and this. And at the end, or during when they were doing things, they were measuring heart rate and comparing like the different groups, and at the end, they very clearly saw, and after they interviewed the people who knew there was deception, and they were much more stressed, they were always second-guessing themselves. They found something, is this actually something I can use, or is this just a fake one which will get me caught, or like get me down the wrong path?
So do we want to give the attackers heart attacks? So I tell you, we have
yeah.
deception technology.
So if you want one, I mean, hopefully I have convinced you it might be a good idea to get one. And luckily there's lots of open source projects for different levels of honeypots. There are the more simple ones which just emulate one service. There is one project called Open Canary, which runs various different services. It's a nice Docker image. You can just run it on your Pi or in a virtual machine, and then you have a honeypot on your network. There are some commercial offerings. They are, I think, bundled also. Sometimes when you buy the full security solution from another company, you get honeypots as part of that. And again, honeypots by themselves is not a solution. You need them as part of other things. So that makes perfect sense. But if you don't want to buy the whole thing, you can buy it from a few. I know of a few vendors, but there's not that many. And that's actually why I started a company around this, like one of the products, why I'm doing this on the evenings, offering like a simple honeypot solution, which you can just plug into your existing network without having to like do it yourself, or you do it yourself with the open source, especially Open Canary, I recommend looking at. So that was a flash talk. It should be fast. So
thank you. Questions? Yeah.
How much?
Like the what? Yeah, $2.99 starting. Just you can check out the web page and contact us. We also need beta testers, so if you want to try this out. Sorry, next one.
Here. How do you see honeypots coexisting well with bug bounties?
If the bug bounty people are inside of your networks, I mean honeypot, in this case, I want to talk about the inside of your network honeypots, and that's usually not where the bug bounty people should be. If they are inside your network, then they probably deserve the bug bounty already. So,
How much continued work is running a honeypot? I'm thinking about the complicated honeypot. If the attackers take over that honeypot, is that another machine that they can use for more lateral movement and more attacks from inside the network?
yes and no. I mean, if you have a very high interaction honeypot, you usually run the full suite of software. And then that might be vulnerable. The Open Canary project and what we do is we have this like low interaction. It doesn't emulate the full thing. It's not the full surface area, and then we lock them in. These honeypots, if you install them in your network, you can definitely lock them from connecting out. I mean, they shouldn't be able to reach anything else as long as you can reach them from the office network or from the server network. That's enough. You can isolate them in that way. That doesn't give the attacker then, if they would breach the honeypot, it doesn't give them any way to move laterally.
So in your case, how typically you think that the attackers find the honeypot? How they end up there? Is it just an IP address somewhere where they find up, or do you set up some kind of lures or something like credentials.txt's in some machines that are kind of hinting that there might be something, or how does the system work in your case?
Depends. I mean, it's one of the hard parts with honeypots. You need to make them not too much in the way that you create false alerts. Like if your employees are triggering it every other day, then it's in the wrong place. But you need to, as you say, the attackers need to find them also. And or in our case, what I like to do is for example, you make if you have a Windows server honeypot, you make it part of the domain so that it can be found, and it identifies then as a Windows 2008 or something, which would be interesting to an attacker. But so when they start looking, they can find it, but it's not obviously in their way, because then I haven't heard about anybody who would where the attackers would be oh, now this is a honeypot, we know it, we'll bypass it. If it's very advanced attackers, maybe they are so careful they will notice that this doesn't look right, they will bypass it. But I think for most companies, that's not the attackers they are worried about. They are worried about the attackers who will go in, they will as quickly as possible try to exfiltrate the files so that they can then do the double extortion ransomware.
Okay, let's have one more question, and then we gotta start hanging out. But yeah, here.
Well, looking at this from a defensive side of point, what is the point of honeypots? Because if you have any endpoint online, you will be easily be able to see the attackers, and then you can block them and you can filter the IPs. So what is the main point of honeypots?
I think you're talking about the internet-facing honeypots. Because the honeypots, how I like to use them, or how I like you to deploy them, is not so that they are accessible from the internet. The attackers can't get to them before they are already inside your network.
And then what's the point? If the attacker is inside my network and he's in the honeypot,
you get an alert before they actually get to do more damage. It's a problem that they are inside. The honeypots won't stop them from getting inside. You need firewalls, you need EDR, everything like that. But if they have managed to bypass that, then you put in honeypots also, because of how low maintenance they are. That's the thing I love about them. Just put them in there, they sit and wait. You don't have to worry about them, and when the attackers start looking around, they start to move, they trigger the honeypot, and then you have an alert, and shit, I need to do incident response. It's not is this an alert, I need to do something about it. Hopefully there's enough context there. If they're logging in with admin credentials to your NAS, then okay, you either call up the administrator and ask, did you just log into this NAS? And he says no. Then you put down the phone, you call incident response. Okay, we are breached. We need to do something before they have time to do more.
Okay, so I get your point. It's more like a car alarm. So you can see the people getting in by using the honeypot, right?
Sorry?
So it's more like a car alarm what you can detect people again and using the honeypots. I guess that's
Yeah,
the
or
point.
fire alarm. Like, I mean, it doesn't stop the fire, but it tells you about the fire.
Okay, thank you.